village.
Lori.
So then the
Okay.
second notice comes along, I'm like, oh, it's Willoughby Hills on 271, so now. Wrong court system.
Well, they're not using the court system in Will. And it's trying to avoid. They're not using the court system.
Give $25 fee.
It'll be interesting to see whether people get paid.
So it started out at 150.
And
Then it went to 165. So then I think.
$5 fee.
Well, you're gonna hear him.
Oh, it started out at 150.
I'm inclined to write, I haven't responded, I'm toying with the idea of writing back and saying, if you can send me something from a court of competent jurisdiction, I'm inclined to write. Otherwise, I'm toying with the idea of writing back and saying, if you can send me something from a court of competent jurisdiction, I'm inclined to write. Otherwise, I'm toying with the idea.
So everything's getting back to normal after your hectic, your brother and
Key West,
No.
your health and,
yeah. Sorry, guys, a couple years.
No, it's been slow getting traveling back with Harry and.
there's water in the pocket if you want to talk about yourself.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
And next year, the girls' vacation does not coincide with your mom, she's a teacher. So that's the perfect time, that it's like, okay, it's almost like a 2-week vacation. Plus the little girls,
Okay, okay.
so
If you and Terry are fine.
if we took them like the first week,
Yeah.
and then the adult.
Oh, yeah.
Nursery.
Oh, perfect.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Even Kelly went down. I recommended some of the places. We're talking about Key West,
Yeah,
Steve. And some of those recommendations I got from Beth.
oh, did you?
Yeah.
when did you go?
We went between Christmas and New Year's.
Oh, this year, recently? Would you go back?
I would say we don't have a reservation about going back, but at, at 70 years old, you want to see the rest of the world. So we probably would not go back soon. We would
Go see something new.
go see something different.
Yeah. There's a lot of history there, so it's more than you would expect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you fly there or did you drive down from Miami?
We flew through Charlotte,
It's an interesting drive, actually.
Yeah.
through the islands there. We've kind of been limiting our vacations to 4 and 5 days with Kelly's dad living with us. Doing pretty well, but we don't like to be gone that long. We have somebody come every day, as many of us appreciate and know and do something like that. And he's up and around, he's not bedridden or whatever, but he can slip, he can fall, he's done that 3 or 4 times. Get a cut, hit your head. Then decide that you're still good enough to take care of it yourself, you don't need to call anybody, and then when they call and they come, you refuse to go, so we fixed that one. I told him, I said, the cost of the village, $2,000 to send a guy here. If he comes, you get in there and let him take you wherever he wants to go, okay? Otherwise, I'm gonna give you the bill.
Yeah, I know, and when we call, because Jeff follows from time to time, we always say, just a police officer, no ambulance, no ambulance. And they usually come with 2 and that works out fine.
No.
How's Ed? Is he?
I got the Ed, to do some of the exercises, because it'd be hard for him to do it on Zoom. And I did it with Lori too, and he sounded good, he's in rehab and coughing, but.
He keeps calling me at 2:30 in the morning. I don't know why. He's not doing it on purpose.
Oh, my
I'm
God.
getting like bud dials for FaceTime. He's FaceTiming me at 2:30 in the morning.
Oh, my God.
I can see him there. Well, I talked to him once or twice. Mostly I just hang up, keep zapping. If something goes on at 2:30, wherever he is, that makes him do that.
You'd be like that guy in the State Farm commercial where, you know, he's talking to the State Farm agent at 2 a.m. and his wife walks down and, who are you talking to? State Farm. No, who are you talking to?
And she picks up the phone and says, "What are you wearing?"
Yeah.
Says a red sweater and khakis.
That is a good one. What was your favorite Super Bowl commercial?
I didn't watch.
There were some bad ones. I can tell you which
It
one
was
I
bad
didn't
to show.
like. Yeah.
The whole thing was bad.
There you go.
Some of those commercials are.
Harrison Ford's was awesome, I thought.
So much.
The Harrison Ford Jeep commercial, Jeep
Oh, the
commercial.
Jeep one,
I
yeah.
thought was awesome.
What happens, it can't live up to the hype.
Yeah, yeah.
Before you
The one,
officially start,
the one that was the worst, I think, was the Seals.
I shared time with her on Thursday.
I don't know, I think
She is
he's
so
an
touched
actor
by the
or
He was
a
a
singer.
singer.
His last name is Seal, or his
Thank
name
you.
is Seal.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing that. I talked to her on Friday, I think.
Well, Lori, good thing, the
So,
Jeep,
yeah, thank
Jeep
you for
commercial
saying
is good. Good for.
Yeah, Harrison
Thank you.
Ford, I thought was awesome. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
We can.
Sure.
Yeah, Harrison Ford, I thought was awesome.
So was anybody surprised about the outcome last night?
Mhm.
Yeah. I was happy. I was rooting for the underdog.
I like it when it's closer.
Yeah. That would have been. a
Oh,
closer
It
game.
was- and the spread was 1.5 points before the game, right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know the score at halftime was like 37-0.
yeah, and then
Something like
Philadelphia
that.
just stopped, yeah. Game was over.
No.
Oh,
And Hurts, the quarterback, you don't hear, you didn't hear much about him before. At least I didn't.
he just gets the job done, no hype.
Mhm.
Yep.
No,
He was famous in college because when he was playing for the, I'll call it one of the national, the SEC championship, it was a huge game,
Mhm.
choked the first half. And Lou
Oh,
Saban took him out, bench. Put somebody else
Didn't
in.
know that.
And we're talking about a wake up call, right? It's like, whoa.
Somebody told me the coach of the Eagles actually went to Mount Union.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
true?
Nick Sirianni's from Jamestown, New York, but he went to Mount Union.
it was,
Now that he's a winner, all the Ohioans will take some credit for him,
Credit,
right?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
He's our guy. He's our guy.
it's always sweet when
We
the,
have no one to take credit for, so we've got to find someone.
I love when, at the end when the families come out, the little kids and the wife and whatnot. Well, it looks pretty nice over there, Lori. Beautiful.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day here, honestly. It was cold, but blue skies and really nice out on the mountain. Really beautiful.
What time is it there?
It's 2 hours difference, so 3:41.
Scott didn't get the message on being social.
Oh. No, he did like everybody else. I forgot about, I did too. Forgot, I thought we were all here. No,
That's not coming?
by Zoom, hopefully.
Okay.
Start coming.
Should be. Talked to him 2 days ago. He's,
Call Scott Room.
he oftentimes has, kid duty, you know. Pick up the kid back and, they're all in high school, but I don't think they're driving and you take them to practice or this game or that game, or whatever it might be. He and his wife split that stuff up, so. We're a few years removed from that. Craig knows that well.
Yes.
I taught my kids how to use the public transportation system when they first went to Ignatius. They said, how are we gonna get there? I said, well, can't drive yet, so take the bus. They said,
Are you serious?
he said, no, we'll drop you off in Hillcrest. You get it's the same thing everybody else does. You get the 9A and you go down to Public Square. you get a transfer ticket, hit 22, you get off at West Duty, all right, on
Yeah.
the way back, you do the same thing. If you're lucky, maybe somebody will pick you up on the way back that knows you from the
That's
neighborhood.
right, feels bad for you.
It's only a mile. Your mom and I walk it every day, it's only a mile. That lasted a year. Then-
Yeah, I'm surprised
I'm
it
surprised
lasted a week,
that long
2
too.
days.
No, that's great.
We're still-
I haven't been home all day.
You know how to.
I left.
So I'm turning this off right now because it'll go, so you just flip it
back.
back on, and then when you have to do it, you'll do. The end meeting. I don't know if Ed is gonna come in at all, so you might need to watch it. I doubt it, that he's not here,
Okay.
but you want to leave it on?
Leave it on.
Can we tell from whatever is on the screen there, because I can't read that far, is there anyone else on? General public, people,
You can't tell from there,
you don't have a
no.
count? There's none.
No, there's no one that's in the meeting except for Lori and you, but if they're watching it, yes, I could tell, we could look on YouTube, but you can't tell from there.
Okay.
We'd have to look on YouTube, and right now Janet's watching it, I know. Hi, Janet.
Chicken.
And I'm streaming it right now. I saw 2 streams, which would have been me and Janet.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for your help today.
There's anybody else?
All right, I'm gonna get a diet.
What do you got? We'll get started. If
Yeah.
Scott comes, he can grab a quick,
All right, I'm gonna grab a diet ginger ale. Anybody want anything? Another
I'll
water?
have a ginger ale, yeah.
Ginger ale?
Thank you.
Maybe I have some.
I'm all set, thanks, Sandra.
that sounds encouraging.
Here he comes.
Hi, Scott.
Sandra. Well, he's got.
Hey, no one has to do a check at your house. Please don't have to. I just did. It's still there.
Oh, my God.
Oh, you thought it was in a house?
Did, Jeff didn't come to the door?
No, I didn't go that far.
Oh,
There
that's
was no
fine.
cars.
He was speeding, did you get here?
I would not.
Well, help yourself, get something to eat.
All right.
And there's some, drinks.
A little bit of news. It's not council business yet, but we did hear from Ohio Emergency Management System on our tornado application for money. As you know, we turned in $118,000 request to the feds who said not big enough.
Oh,
Said no thank you to all those in Cuyahoga County.
No,
And we had to reapply to the state. Once the feds say no, then the governor is allowed to open up his wallet, fund, and so on. Different application process, you turn all that stuff in, different reimbursement rates, et cetera, but we did get news last week that we'll be receiving $62,000 sometime this year, 62, which is
excellent.
75% of
Yeah.
the revised amount. So we put in an application for about 80 something, 85, let's call it. And they approved all of that, and the sharing is 75 state, 25 local.
Okay, great job.
You know, Mike Fee did a wonderful job, and Tom, our police chief, wrote a letter of commendation for his while, just on the
Okay,
amount of effort to do that. Okay, good evening. It's 5:45, and I think we'll commence the special council meeting of the Village of Gates Mills here on February 10th of 2025. Beth, would you do a roll call, please?
Anton,
Here.
Steinbrink,
here.
Broom,
Here.
Turner. Here. Press.
Here.
We would need to extend, Councilmember Deacon is available by Zoom. And do we excuse Mr. Welch?
I'll excuse Mr. Welch.
There's a motion. Can I have a second to excuse Ed Welch? Michael, thank you.
Anton.
Yes.
Broom. I'm sorry. Steinbrink,
No,
Turner,
Yes,
Press,
Yes.
Boom.
Broom.
Yes.
Okay, so,
What happens if the noes were in the majority?
We punish him.
It's good question.
we will still have the meeting.
Sure.
No.
Meeting's been duly called and so on.
Send the gendarmes after Ed.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
So our meeting today is to look at our accomplishments in 24, our plans for 25, and discuss some degrees of collaboration among ourselves and with village organizations and maybe our neighboring communities. Oftentimes, our regularly scheduled council meetings are consumed by the business of the day and mechanics and the operational concerns that we all help administer and fulfill. And we don't have time or talent or materials or focus to talk about the strategic issues. All this work we're doing doesn't make a difference, and will it be long-term, and how does it align with the community priorities and the strategic plans, the community planning process? So, it's not uncommon once or twice a year to have a meeting, in this case, a special council meeting, focused more just on what I'll call the strategic issues and the larger priorities. And that's why we're here today. So we'd like to talk about a little bit what we think we've accomplished in 24. We've put together some worksheets that will help guide the conversation that Sandra is going to go through in a minute. We'd like to talk about 25 priorities. There are some worksheets there that you have, as well as ask you to make some notes. And also areas where we could work better as a team between administration, council, and collaborate as well with village organizations, whether it's the Historical Society or the Community Club or our neighboring communities, those in the police and fire and EMS and service departments. So that's the purpose today, is to look at 24's achievements on a strategic basis, look at where we think 25's priorities could be, and talk about how we get that done in 25, 26, et cetera. Any questions on that? This is a council meeting, so we are taking minutes. It is being live streamed and will be recorded and available for those that either want to check in with it later. Okay, I'll turn it over to Sandra. She has some comments.
Yeah, I'll make some introductory remarks before we get into the review of 24 and the goals for 25. Every month we come together in this configuration to conduct the village business, and we prepare, we study the issues, we come and listen to the arguments, the evidence, and then go ahead and make decisions. And we do a pretty good job. And the evidence of that will be some of the examples that you're bringing and sharing with us later this evening. So how is this meeting different than a regular council meeting? We've called it a special council meeting. And I would say it's because the focus is on us, what we think was accomplished in 24, what our goals are for 25, and also how we went about achieving our mission. For me, it's about looking at how we can bring out the best in one another and recognize one another's contributions. So for any group, public, private, family groups even, no matter how good the working relationships, it's easy to get complacent. And what we're doing here is taking the time to reflect, to create some new connections among us, and to have a better understanding, which I believe can generate some excitement and enthusiasm and energy, which is why I put those two figures on the agenda. Energy, the woman jumping there, and on the right, the connectivity. It's a different way of linking people together. And hopefully we can be even more effective and have more fun with the work that we're doing. So, how do we do that? We do that by listening and speaking to one another with openness and curiosity. So tonight, there's a couple of ground rules for our discussion. And one is that one person speaks at a time, that we acknowledge what the other person said. And as much as possible, use the first person. So I statements, I think this, I feel this, I believe this. And finally, contribute as much or as little as you want. Okay, because there's no obligation to answer every question at all. So we want to make this, again, as comfortable and safe for you as possible. So, any questions about that so far? Okay, so to make this kind of fun to start out, I've got a couple of fun icebreakers. And there's 4 questions. So if you wouldn't mind writing the answers, maybe on the back of your agenda. And the first one is, what one word or phrase best describes you? What one word or phrase best describes you? Second question is, what are you most passionate about? What has been your most fun experience ever? And finally, what's your least favorite chore? I got a smile out of people. Ooh, look at that.
Thank you.
Wow, that's great. So we can nice. Thank you. Thank you. Would you bring some more plates? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Please.
Please. Thank you. Everybody knows Laura, right?
Laura's the best.
Laura's the best.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna discuss these in pairs. So Steve, Scott, Craig and David and Michael and me. So discuss with your partner what you've written down, how you've answered each of those questions. Okay?
Lori,
What's we doing
you're right.
about
We have an odd number.
Yeah, Lori.
Oh, Lori and I did this together
Okay,
on Friday.
okay,
And Ed and I did it today.
okay.
So they're not missing.
Okay.
So you two are partners?
Yeah.
You two are partners, then you and I.
Yeah.
I was gonna be anything. Great, understand. Check these with my wife.
Oh. That's if you want to know something, ask your spouse, right? You'll get the unvarnished. Thank you. Yeah.
Word or phrase that best describes you.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
I'd say,
I would say.
not very social,
Oh,
more business-like, serious,
I would
less
say,
social.
Okay.
all right.
Compared to
Okay.
Yes.
And I would go.
I like it.
Yes.
Always
Since I was
find a way to-
private, I was always working hard.
For you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's surprising.
I realized by working hard, you got a little bit ahead of
Quite extroverted.
Credit.
I would say you're probably the most, one of the
And then
most
storm,
popular.
we were looking at the weather, I'm like,
not-
storm went
Wow.
that night. and-
Wow, that's
Yeah,
quite- that's
I
quite-
think you go out of your way.
Yeah, I do.
Don't know
I do.
And I think people notice that.
There's another few other
I
words.
better
appreciate it.
But that's
While we
true.
have this
That's
chance.
not my natural
Let's take
self stance.
on his holiday, right?
David,
this conversation
is
over.
5-day weekend.
Yeah. You know, it's fine. Not according to you.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
introverted.
All right.
Okay.
That's good.
Most
Is that too good
people
words?
Yes.
Work for that long?
So
and
when
you're
you
like,
reach out,
yeah, my wife, my family. So
It's like
I've only,
compensating.
you know, kids are only gonna do this with me. I love so much fun.
Little
boy.
As soon as they get to driving. And.
Really?
Yeah.
Access to the.
Yeah.
Well, I must say, you're
No, we are.
very good.
Intellectual and business or.
No matter
But
I was,
social.
so no matter where you
That,
live,
that makes sense.
no matter how many people are
I'm not
chasing
good
you.
at small talk.
My father said to me, don't read. We're gonna stop you. Sometimes more important
Yeah.
than what you do.
And we both probably learned how to do that.
That's what
We
my
learned how to do that.
Yeah. Get everything else done so you can go have fun.
So what do you passionate about?
So, yeah, my family, what's your hobby? Do you have a hobby?
Okay.
We both.
And I like scuba diving,
My work.
Okay.
Are you passionate about that or is it?
Oh, yes.
Like horses?
dogs.
Trying to get a good result.
Competitively in school, like.
So,
Worked all night.
then maybe
Never
this is
got
the
tired.
serious, serious side,
Now the
but
kids
I'm
will
most
have-
passionate about learning.
Several.
So,
I like learning too. That's a really good answer.
I'll get involved in
Although.
almost anything, just to, you know, about something I don't know, something about.
Yeah.
Even the tree
Yeah.
canopy,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
Wisconsin.
Now they're getting
Come out of
older.
that, but-
Budding arborist or anything like that.
Yeah.
but it's an
So
opportunity
that's still good.
to
Like,
learn.
happy-
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Okay.
I mean, I,
You know, 70s, 80s.
when you quit learning,
You're probably not out doing.
you're thrilled.
People have a good time.
Right,
So I
yeah.
thought you're giving up.
Okay. Yeah, the next one. Most
Um,
fun thing.
Most
So yours were more
fun
along.
experience.
The kind
They
of-
all were fun.
Okay, so
Different reasons.
you're passionate about is like.
So we did
rafting and ice
activities,
buddies,
travel,
which is
Yeah.
sports.
Travel for like horses.
4 years ago, the kids had a really
Outdoorsy kind
good
of
time.
stuff.
So they were a good
hanging out with
age
my
and
wife.
kayaking.
So good, and now kids, right?
But I would say, if I thought of learning, I
Yeah,
said
said
that.
that, yeah.
I put, how do?
I do a lot of reading.
The other thing that I'm passionate about, and you kind of have to be,
Santa Fe, and I
is taking
surprised
care
Kelly,
of
she'd
Jeff.
never been up in one.
Well,
He.
I might have.
You and I actually
Share that too.
we share that
Festival out there?
because we, you've been at it longer than I have.
Yeah.
We went up.
But I've been at it, it'll be 4 years in March, so.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And it,
We went up.
You have to redesign your life.
Okay.
If you just sit at home, being caregiving full time.
They got like Mississauga, all the way that are up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I.
One day we were
I
canoeing.
said to Jeff, I said,
And
we
man,
didn't
we said,
want
this is
to be able
getting
to
easy.
afford.
Across his leg.
caregiver.
And when he came to turn around, he said, "Oh, we'll head back now. Let me take a half an hour."
They go up and they,
And both on less than an hour's notice.
Yeah, see,
I'm not-
yeah, yeah. No,
That's
that-
exciting thing I ever did, because I did a bungee jump in South Africa
caregivers are not brave.
15 years ago. Man.
You know, and they don't have cars.
Okay, I would have never guessed.
I would have.
Huh?
Interesting.
So,
And I can get in that whenever I want. But I've got all-wheel drive and all our cars. Cars and all the cars. The caregivers are getting stuck. In fact, they're threatening.
Sets of
Jody's
master president of schools.
One step.
Figure out what you have to do when ninth grade football.
Understandable.
I don't know yet.
Couple of driveways like that. like,
Grease on me
Holly
and-
Matthews on our corner.
Charlie, try to plan anything.
I got the most exciting thing I ever did though. was when I was
So hers is pretty level.
I scored my first.
But yeah, when you have gravel,
He says,
Holly does like I
I
do.
just wrote this yesterday.
Under certain conditions, it becomes. a
Just always remnant.
My problem is like, yeah, I'm off the county line down.
That any like the result.
Wrong president, for example.
Okay.
I've been down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's this one
So, yeah.
area.
Okay, least favorite door.
Thing
How about-
doesn't
how about
float
William-
anymore.
Right.
Keeping my study.
That's a problem.
You can't use that on gravel.
Even a plane like
Okay.
fly.
What happens is the gravel
Helicopters
and
not hot
the
air balloons. They don't.
the water gets in it.
Yeah, I got
freezes,
window.
And it makes a good surface.
Every spring inside the windows. It seemed like a great idea at the time.
Okay, so I'm not.
Then all of a sudden you realize that's
So,
two or three
yeah,
windows.
yeah.
You're kind of like, ah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of done, and then you get the rest of the house.
But if you have those,
Oh, well, that's what would work.
Well, yeah, those divided light, yeah.
They won't affect the asphalt.
and actually feeding a window properly is not easy to.
Wait, is that, that's
No.
somebody trying to enter?
And everyone's like, oh, use.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Hello, Sandra, can you hear me?
Professional.
Sandra,
That's-
Sandra, can you hear me? This is Ed. Don't blow me off this call. Do you know how to run this? Sandra, hello, Sandra,
Yes. we hear
are you there?
Oh,
Okay,
right.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
don't let me get blown off. I've been trying for over half an hour. Okay.
We're in small group discussions, Ed, so I'll let you know when we're starting back up kind of the full meeting.
You mean we gotta start all over again?
Tidying up your
No,
calls.
I'll just.
Leaving in the window, you just need a bigger study.
Um.
You refuse.
Okay.
I just bring in more crap.
Just need more space.
Oh, this is terrible. This is awful. Somebody has to learn how to use Zoom.
I'm at stage in life where.
We used to use it all the time, but during COVID, I don't understand why this is such a problem.
What are you going to, she said, I'm going to go first. That's the
Okay.
actuarial thing.
Hi,
All right.
David. Well, hi, David.
Use for it.
So I,
Hello, Dave.
keep going.
No, I mean, I
Oh,
think
you're
we're done.
done?
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
We'll add to the minutes that Ed Walsh is on the phone.
Yes, I
Thank
did.
you.
Okay,
Okay, so wait, we didn't finish it.
well,
So what was your most fun experience?
It was very fun.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Reach over there.
And I would say, when I was young.
Yeah. Park those- park those right here. Yeah, he just.
And
So right.
they had a little cabin on the lake.
Well, maybe I'll
And,
try.
in Maine. And it was so much fun because I played with my cousins. I was an only child, so I
Yeah.
got to be with other kids. and,
I'm also an only child.
Wow. Wow.
Can you guys hear Ed Wells?
And so that was a lot, a lot of fun. And we used to do that
most fun
every
thing?
summer.
My wife and I came back from Ronnie.
And how about you? What's
I had
the
a friend.
most- Oh, you said travel.
Yeah, travel. I like travel.
And what's your,
Mhm.
what is that favorite tour?
Probably cleaning stalls. I spent a lot of life doing it.
Okay. Get married.
Cleaning
Sorry, I
stalls.
just gotta know somebody
And
else.
It's the
for
good
me-
side of being out of the horse business.
So
Go
for
to
me, it's
somebody else.
putting away
Okay.
holiday decorations. So
Uh,
like I can drag out putting Christmas decorations
You're all
away for a couple
uptight.
of months.
Be enough,
Worry.
that'll be enough to make me stop
Your brides.
Vibrating in the.
Yeah, I know. So if you're finished,
And when you go to someone else's.
let your partner know kind of what stood out, what you learned, what you didn't know, about him.
Good piece of.
Or her.
advice.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah. What?
I think we already
Hey, we're
did
gonna
that.
do this, we're changing this. Yeah,
Well, I
whatever.
would say.
I don't care.
Maybe we would have said like
Serendipity.
Whatever you want.
You know,
40 years ago or
Can anybody hear me?
15 years ago.
I was actually.
Good for you.
That's how you want, but it's like.
And we're both,
Can anybody hear Ed Welsh?
Yeah.
We can hear you, Ed.
we can hear you.
Okay, okay. I don't want to get blown off again. I've been working for half an hour to get in this call.
And we'll let you know when we're doing the full meeting again, okay?
Okay, what do I do now?
So,
What do you want me to do?
Just
What do you
bear
want?
with us and have a beer, Ed.
okay, and.
Take it, all right.
So I think that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Did you have a chance to do that?
Do what?
I've got a terrible echo.
We're there with you learned about each other. Okay, good. All right, good. So, so that was the fun part. Hopefully got you warmed up for the more serious, questions, which we can do in a full group. And hopefully you have those sheets that you brought with you or remember in any way. So the worksheet, the first worksheet has to do with the effectiveness of you as a council member, and then the council as a whole. So the first question is, think of a time when you were most effective in a council meeting. Describe it for us.
Think we need those questions.
Oh,
I'll
I
take
made
a
a
copy.
copy.
Yeah, I don't have mine with me.
That's not a question for Ed Welsh. Right?
Not yet, Ed. Hang in there though with us. We'll get you something.
I'm there. Just don't drop me. I'm
We're not gonna
nervous.
touch anything.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'll see these.
all right.
You got them?
Got you right in the palm of our hands.
Okay.
anyone can start. And again, not everyone has to answer.
It's a general comment. This is all about the meetings.
Okay.
Council meetings.
Meetings, yes.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of life in between meetings
Right,
where we could spend more or less time together
right.
in small groups and kick things around because the meetings themselves, I looked at all the agendas for 24 and man, was it boring. I didn't read all the minutes. But I did read all the agendas. And I can't recall one excellent discussion of a topic.
Wow, okay,
What I would call excellent.
okay. All right.
But it's the time in between meetings that's important.
Maybe we can hear some other folks.
Actually, I agree with David. My frustration on council is, I think there's a reluctance on council to engage in debate on issues. I mean, when somebody throws out an issue, a lot of times falls with a dull thud on the table and nobody says a word there. It's very seldom that we talk about, big issues and exchange views, and we should make us all smarter. Because I think just dissenting views lead to a better answer than you would otherwise have.
Yep.
But is there a time when you felt you were effective? I can give mine, I guess, as an example. Last spring, the council defeated a suggestion about a bike path down Chagrin River, down Gates Mills Boulevard. And I supported that. I thought that residents wanted more connectivity, walking bike paths, and I presented a plan with Chris. But it was defeated by council. So why I think I was effective is that I did my part to present it. I accepted the outcome and we moved on. There's no bike path and I'm not harboring any ill will about having been defeated. So for me, that's an example of being effective at a council meeting. Or a couple of council meetings.
Yeah, and Sandra, I guess, Michael, though, I think there we did engage in some, pretty, um, different dialogue with different views. Everyone kind of had a different view on it. So I think we did do that there.
I agree
That's a
with
good
that, but I
That's a
think
good
that's the
example.
exception rather than the rule.
And in the scheme of things, that was a very small, almost a very forgettable decision. I mean, it was very small.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen us have a serious discussion, for example, about the financial prospects for the village. Not once.
Okay, well, all right.
So it's.
And I
it's
guess
important.
I guess I would say for me, it was important. And we did have a debate and a decision, so I can hear you saying that it wasn't, in the big scheme of things, wasn't important. For me, it was. It was part
It
of
was for
the.
me too. I did a lot of work on it to resist it.
So I think that we handled the zoning appeal well and worked effectively as a council. I thought we worked together really well on that issue, tough issue. Obviously, there's some things we can't talk about because we were in executive session, but I thought we worked really well on that. And I think we worked through a difficult problem together.
Actually, I think our executive session discussions are the best discussions we have, which is interesting. Why can't we have those discussions in the regular public session as well as in the executive session? People seem more willing to engage in the executive session.
So is that suggesting that we don't function properly in public?
I thought our
That's an
public
excellent
discussions were
idea.
good too there. I felt like our public discussions were pretty good there, including in the hearing, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I love working with Laura. She's very understanding.
Well, seeing it on the worksheet, that was my thing, was on 640, I thought.
Yeah, she's
that
very,
I
she's
did
very
okay.
smart. She has very good logic. Yeah.
The issue on the executive session is one of the things is, for those executive sessions, we are essentially grilling Todd with our ideas and trying to get his input as to, is this something we can do or can't do, or what are the limits of what we can do? And when we start asking those questions, what are the limits of what we can do, or like what are our outer boundaries? What are our inner boundaries? I think that helps get us talking, because we'll throw something out there and say, is this past the outer boundary, Todd, or is it within the boundaries? It makes us talk. And
That's an interesting comment, because it may speak to, like you said, how we get engaged, which is by asking questions, which in a council meeting, we don't necessarily ask questions of one another. We're making statements about our opinions. So it's an interesting observation.
right.
Yeah. Because I think I would agree that the free flow of conversation in the executive session seems to be more at ease or comfortable.
And that may just be my thing,
Yeah.
because I'm a lawyer, called me a lawyer one time, but I know even on planning and zoning, when we have an executive session and we have Todd basically on the hot seat, and where it generates better conversation, because like, okay, what can we do and what can't we do here? Like where can we go? Now, again, that was on one specific issue. So we had something to focus on there. And I think we all contributed very well to it.
Right. Well, and to your point though, about questions, we're questioning Todd, maybe something about questioning one another or asking to understand a little bit better where you're coming from. Maybe that is a way to generate conversation in a regular council meeting. We kind of look under the covers a little bit more when we're in executive session. good point. So any other, and we're trying to focus on, or I am, on some of the things that we do positively to see if we can do more of that. There's a lot of things that we can find that maybe we don't do well, but let's try to see what we do well. So any other examples before we move
Got
on?
one.
Yeah.
Charter amendment. In May, we passed a charter amendment motion 5-2. We didn't have much real dialogue back and forth. I'm not confident that it wouldn't be 5-2 the other way if we revoted it today. And my feeling is that we passed the thing, but nobody really wants to talk about it. Nobody wants anything to happen. And that's why 10 minutes later, nothing's happened.
10 months later.
Yeah, we passed it in May of last year. And here we are in February.
With the question still unresolved. With the question still unresolved.
Correct. Well, we actually passed a motion that said we were going to do something,
But we didn't.
but we didn't do anything.
So we have that on the list of priorities to discuss later, when number 25, it's the first item on the fourth section down below. So we can pick up the conversation at that point, talk about what we do and what we don't do.
I was just giving it as
No,
an
it's a good
example of
example.
something. I think we are getting ready to do something now.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later, but my feeling for the last 9 months has been, it's kind of like an elephant in the room kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. On the point about what we could, David's comment that, the meetings are pretty boring and the good stuff was usually at the end. Either you get a comment or two from the audience or under the other council matter, somebody brings something up that they've been waiting an hour to talk about patiently. Should we think about maybe having the other council matters not be kind of a standard agenda item? Or it becomes a default for someone that doesn't bring stuff up ahead of time, or they want to talk about it, no one else is prepared to think about it because they haven't heard about what the other matter is. To maybe have an understanding that if you want to bring something up at the council meeting, you've got to kick it over, to this side of the table, whatever, 10 days before, so we can understand what it is. We can prepare legislation. If it needs a piece of legislation, we can prepare a little position paragraph, something so that people can then engage in it because they know it's now on the agenda.
I think that's a good idea. And I think also we tend sometimes to, if we have a big item on the agenda that is kind of meaty, a lot of times it comes late in the agenda. And we're doing all the pretty routine stuff early on, and everybody's kind of running out of gas by the time we get to what should be the most important thing on the agenda.
That gets back to the whole issue of how the agenda is actually organized. I mean, who decides what's going on the agenda and how? I've written to you on a number of occasions about topics that might be worthwhile putting on the agenda and they don't appear. So I don't know what to make of that. So I don't know what's going to be on next Tuesday's agenda until Saturday morning. And then it's a bit late.
So we're a bit off topic, so I'm going to bring us back in here. And if there's no input on what we do, what you've done well, or what the council as a whole has done well at a meeting, why don't we move on to the next question, which is, what would you like from council members to help you be your best, be descriptive? And I gave some examples of that.
In the meetings.
In the meetings, yes. In the meetings. I'd be willing to give mine as an example. I am aware that sometimes I'm not very clear in what I say, and if somebody were to say to me, please clarify, or did you mean? that kind of helps me to clarify what it is that I said. And I don't know why I do that. Sometimes I guess I'm thinking a couple of thoughts and they come out kind of mixed up. And I know when I do that, but then, there's dead silence and that's really uncomfortable. And it sometimes prompts me to be a little bit more withdrawn, to not take a chance. So I put that out there. I know that about me, and you can help by helping me to get clear.
Sandra, it gets worse with age.
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that. That's why I keep notes a lot of times and speak what I want to say so I don't get confused. So anyway, that's me.
I would put out a compliment to Mr. Anton, that he's been clearer, at least with me, understanding it, on what he really views as important things for him to eventually make a decision. When we started this a year ago, there were a lot of questions that were being asked, and you wonder, what's the question for, and what's the context, and what are we really getting at, and which of this is necessary information, which of this is background information. And a lot of those questions then come to the office, and then we're hunting down information, and maybe it's something really important, and maybe it's something more curious. And so I compliment you, David. I'd say over the last 2 months, you would say something like, this is really important to me, or I need this to make a decision. Something that, at least to me, listening to you may not use those words, but I'm understanding it to be something that is important to you, not just something that is nice to know.
Yeah.
And that helps me after the meeting then or during the meeting.
Thank you for
Direct
that.
Travis.
I had a job once, which was, I was paid to ask the tough questions. That was my job in BP, corporate strategy. Michael did the same job.
Yep.
What are the questions we're missing as we hurry into this decision? And you were the grouch in the corner of the room. And I think that's a very important part of proper decision making. Not disagreeing, just getting all the information that is really relevant on the table.
Well, the two things you said there, all the information that's really relevant. So it's the relevant piece, I guess, that I've now picked up on more in dealing with you and others, that has helped me shape things going forward, as opposed to just all the data and you're wondering which of this is really relevant and which of this is not as relevant.
It's true. See, I think we're all.
Sometimes when you ask those questions, the audience reacts as if you're being not aggressive, that's too strong a word, but causing trouble, not trying to add value.
Well, then maybe they do. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you're trying to add value.
Sure. Sure. I think we've also got to remember that we all have different styles, which has nothing to do with our experience, just who we are and the way we behave. And we also have different backgrounds, including the way we've been trained. So I'm a scientist. I've done a lot of finance work. So my perspective on things is very much factual and analytical. Others have done social studies, and that's not the case. It's a softer kind of approach to life. So I think we've got 2 lawyers on our council, 2 professional, 3 counting the mayor, but just on council, the 2 professional businessmen. Scott is very exposed to finance. You're a psychologist. And that's it. So we're a mix, we're an important mix, and we don't take advantage of that mix. Yeah. And we get worried by style more than we do by substance.
No.
And that really bothers me.
So what do you need, David?
What do I need? I need people to say, when I ask a question, I'd like them to say, that's a good question, or it's a crap question. If they told me it was a crappy question or irrelevant, I'd say, well, can we just talk about that for a moment? Okay. But just to say
I think that's kind of judgmental. I don't really like that crappy question. I think how you ask the question is important as the content of the question.
Well, I said style and substance need to be differentiated.
How you ask the question is as important as the content of the question, in my experience.
Well, I disagree with that. I think the substance is far more important if we're going to get to the right answer.
I don't know, I worked for a company where we said what we did was as important as how we did it. So that's how I was trained.
As I said, we're all being trained differently.
Yeah.
I was trained
No.
differently.
Right. I would agree with you, Lori, and David, to you, that may explain again some of the, I don't know, edginess or that I sense sometime, because you're putting it out there without any kind of maybe context, or I don't know, kindness is probably not the right word, but
What word?
kindness.
Kind questions. What are kind?
No. I'm saying the envelope, the wrapping, the how you do it. So it's interesting to hear you, and I probably could have perceived that, but it's interesting to hear you just acknowledge that the question is important to you, good or crappy, but how you give it, with what words, with what tone of voice, really doesn't matter.
Well, the question isn't important. The answer's important.
Right. Or it brings the answer. Yeah.
One of the things I like that Steve does is he sometimes kind of goes around the room. What do you think, Scott? What do you think, Craig? That's good.
Thank you.
Because that tends to get
Yeah.
people talking a little bit.
Right.
Because you can get by in a council meeting and not say a word.
Right, you shouldn't be able to,
You shouldn't be able to,
but you
but you
can.
That's good.
And I think one of the things that's not been said here as well, everyone's background is important. I think what shapes the questions and the attitudes more is why people ran for the seat that we're sitting in now. And so from my standpoint, I ran because I love the village and I don't want it to change. And if my kids wanted to have grown up here and want to raise their family someday, that the village looks like it does today, like it looked 30 years ago, 40 years ago, with some minor changes, but it doesn't look like, I'm not trying to disparage any cities, it doesn't look like a Brecksville or a Solon or a Twinsburg, where if you looked at an aerial map from 40 or 50 years ago, all those municipalities look vastly different than the way our little village looks today. So I think that tends to frame some of the questions, and some of the interest of some members on council is why they ran. The reason I ran is probably different than the reason David or Michael or Sandra or Scott ran. And so I think that lens is something that needs to be considered as important to know, as much as the background. And you may be more comfortable getting direct feedback than myself or Scott, and that's just your personality and who you are. Some people are just more direct, and other people would not be able to, wouldn't be comfortable having such a direct conversation in a public forum. When you're in a room and there isn't a camera rolling, that's one thing. When you're in an office talking to a colleague or having a conversation with 2 or 3 people, I think maybe people tend to let their guard down a little bit more than than take less offense to something that may have.
I agree with you on that. It's a good point.
Call.
We're stuck with the rules. I mean,
Yeah.
we are
Yes.
public servants,
Right.
and we
I'm
are
fine.
subject to sunshine rules, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
And
But within that context, what are some nuances that would,
I don't know, but
Enable us
holding
to
back
be
your
better.
thoughts is not a good thing. It's not something we want to encourage.
Well, and I would add to that, and I feel like government should be boring. If you watch C-SPAN, you'd fall asleep. It's the pace of change should be glacial. Things should be very well thought out. Residents shouldn't be surprised. I'm a business owner. That's not how I would choose to run my business, but that's the way people expect the government to operate. Very methodical, very slow, sand in the gears. And I wish, maybe I wish it was a little bit different. But I think that prevents snap judgments and going down a path where people aren't prepared for it. And so, I mean, I will look at an example like, I know, I don't think it was 6-4. I don't remember the place on
781.
781, where my perspective on that is that the process worked. Residents came in here. I was brand new on planning and zoning at the time, and I rolled in here, and there are 35 people in here and another 50 out in the hallway. If the residents aren't happy with something, they will let you know. And so it wasn't that things went down a long path that, listen, word got out, people showed up, and this is not something we're interested in having in our village at all. And that was the end of that.
Well, you said it on that particular example, word got out. That
It
means
always
that-
does.
Exactly.
We're a
That's
small
why
community.
we're supposed to be transparent. That took people by surprise. The idea took people by surprise. And they didn't like that surprise, and they stopped it before it happened.
Well,
That was bad.
I mean, it
That's
was.
why I
listen,
ran. I ran because that was poor
Well, if you're
governance.
going to do something in the village, you have to go in front of planning and zoning. So that's kind of the first step. So planning and zoning did not have the option to say, we're not interested in having you in front of us. They don't have that ability. It's on the agenda. It is what it is.
Sure.
And so that almost phrases it like P and Z had a choice in terms of whether they could listen
No.
to what this person said and had to present to the village or not.
That's what I'm saying.
I agree
PNC
with
did its
that,
job.
Craig. PNC did fine on
Did its job.
781, I think. But the citizens were caught by surprise. I'm like David. I'm here today because of 781 to a large extent. And there was a citizens group formed. They were very upset. By the time they found out what was going on, it turns out that the mayor had already discussed changing the zoning rules and had already agreed to do a swap to put 5 acres of village property into the developer's plan in exchange for the developer buying and giving the village another 5 acres somewhere else. All that stuff, there was a lot of movement on that. Maybe it was never brought up at P and Z, but it all came out in the wash. That project was much further down the road than anybody thought, and there was no communication to the village at all. If it wasn't for Celeste McClung and a couple other people, Brent
And Stuart, yep.
and Ann Stewart, and they organized that Concerned Citizens Committee.
Okay, so.
And that was why you had 50 people or 40 people in here and 50 people out there was the citizens organized that. That was a failure of government.
But Michael, I don't want to address specific instances because actually I want to go back up to 50,000 feet
Yeah,
here. But on
yeah.
this particular issue, you have to understand that what they came to planning and zoning with
And the
What-
three of us were on planning and
was
zoning.
not a formal plan at all in any way. They were trying to get an advisory opinion out of us, and not
And you don't
only
give
not only do we say we don't give advisory opinions, basically they're saying, should we spend the money to do this? But not only do we not give those, I mean, I don't think that, and Craig and Sandra, I don't think that, at least from my perspective, I could have been more emphatic to those guys that
There's no chance.
you have no chance. You have zero chance. And with all due respect to the former mayor, it didn't matter whatever arrangements or
Yeah.
things are made.
Yeah.
That was going at planning and zoning in front of them. That was a dead issue. Thing was going
Well-
nowhere.
Okay,
And,
okay, I'll give you that,
right.
but planning and zoning passed variances for the Rosses next to me to allow cluster homes to be built.
Well, that
Yeah,
was,
absolutely, no question.
no,
about
that
it.
was not the purpose of that. The purpose of that was to get that house sold.
No, so let's have
Yeah.
kind of one.
Yeah.
But-
They did not need a variance to sell the house.
I
The
agree.
variance
but
was to allow cluster homes to be
No,
built on
that's
the
not
path.
accurate. That's
No.
not accurate.
I can show you
I
the
was
drawings.
That's fine, but what was approved in planning and zoning was a 5 acre keyhole lot. That's it. That's what planning and zoning.
You gave
approved.
them, you also.
And I
gave-
didn't do anything, I voted against it.
I know you did, and I was proud of you.
So
But you also gave them a variance from the frontage requirement.
that's what
You
the
did.
keyhole lot was for.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
But it
why
also
came here.
opened the door to section 1160 being used to put in 5 cluster homes in the middle of the pasture.
Well, and it was temporary it was only for like 6 months while they were trying to sell the
I
house.
think
So,
that's,
But,
Moving
but
on.
okay,
So-
but wait,
We need to be back in the
Okay, but-
forest of the trees here.
Yeah.
but
so
well,
Go ahead.
I want to
Go,
go.
you-
Now, Craig opened the door for me.
Yeah.
Thank
you
you.
go
sir.
back
Now,
to
so for
50,000
the last
feet.
year, I've been listening. You know, I have to say, when that first meeting, and I thought, oh, this would be easy, no problem. And it was anything but easy. I mean, I'm like, okay, so why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And I'm trying to learn why we're doing all these things. And and I agree with David that sometimes all the routine things that we do seem rather boring, but we have to realize that the village, the operations of the village, the safety forces and the service department and everything, they run pretty well. And every year that they run and every year that the roads get fixed and the emergency repairs get made up on Old Mill or up on West Hill and all those things that we sort of take that for granted, but those are accomplishments nevertheless by the council and the mayor for making sure that all that happens and that the village operates within budget and that's so those are things that we accomplish. We're always looking for specific things. We're looking for the bridge, we're looking for some identifiable little project, but all of that is not nothing. I mean, it's something. It's and then when we start looking at other things, and everyone has their different opinions, but I started to think, well, so what are we doing here? We're running that. We're looking at that part. We're keeping an eye on the mayor. We're keeping an eye on the service department heads and making sure that finance is being spent. But what else are we doing here? And why do we have a council? Why do we have a government, right? And Constitution, both the federal Constitution and the state Constitution, both we're here to promote the general welfare. And sometimes we talk about, well, we've got to do this like a business, or we have to, or sometimes we're in a better bargaining position, or we have to remember that sometimes as a government might make decisions and choose to spend money on things that you might not choose in your own personal lives. And when Craig said, the reason that we all ran, and I have my reasons and I have my view of what the village should look like, and I echo Craig's sentiment. It's probably worse. I'd start knocking down houses if I could.
People live in them.
That's
a problem.
But
Sound like Trump.
but
Gaza.
but the thing is, what I want is that's not the most important thing. I mean, it might shape my view and what I'd like to see happen, but it's not the most important thing. It's, what do we do? What do we do to provide for the general welfare of the village? And the answer to that at times may be we don't do anything except keep it going the way it's going right now. I mean, there might be a time where it's going to be boring, where we're not going to have some windmill we're going to tilt at, or we're going to have something we're going to do. And so it may be that sometimes our meetings are going to be just those things and there won't be anything on there. I mean, the tree canopy committee is doing a wonderful job and and it's pushing things forward, and David and Sandra and Mitch are really, which is a great effort for the village. I mean, it's a great effort because just the beauty of the village is getting ransacked by all of this stuff, and it would be really nice to stop that. For some communities, that might not seem like a major issue. For the city of Cleveland, that would be really a big deal. But for us, it's a big deal. And so
And everybody in the village would agree with that.
right.
I mean, that is true welfare.
Right. Right. And so sometimes, when we're considering projects or we have decisions to make, and when we're in those meetings and we're handling all the routine stuff, which we say is just routine and we dismiss it as it's just routine, it's still important. And maybe this meeting or meetings like this are good because we're not worried about what the budget was, and we haven't just reviewed the budget numbers. We're not looking who is this vendor and who is that vendor and why do we do this and we don't have to have Steve explain to us, what's going on in that road project, or Chris Courtney's got to get up and tell us what's happening, because we can talk about that. I mean, Michael's charter amendment motion. Honestly, I'm kind of ambivalent. I don't think it's a must-do thing, but it's something we could do. But I really think before we were to do that, we should look at other things. We should look at, do we need to change any zoning? The 7,500 acre lots or 7,500 square foot lot that we have in the village, you can't build them. You can't build on them without a ton of variances. I mean, you might be able to, I don't know what you could build. You'd have to build it would look about 10 feet wide, and it would have to be real tall to get the square foot requirement. So maybe.
I agree,
I'm
I
gonna
agree,
go-
Scott, with you 100%. And one of the reasons I'm worried about it, when we passed it back in May, it seemed like a very, very long time till November of 25. But I'm with you. If we are going to go ahead with the zoning charter amendment, we need to do a lot of cleanup of what we've got right now in the code. And we need time to do that.
Well, the other
And
thing
I'm
is,
worried that we're losing the time we need to go through and thoughtfully look at what should be changed.
but I'm not trying to go to a specific example, but I'm just using that but in order to do that, we really need to know what we can and can't do. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous without talking to Todd about it. But what can we, if we increase the lot sizes, are those lots grandfathered? Can we do that?
So can we just table this discussion and say,
Yeah.
this is a big issue for everybody
No,
around council? We need to get this resolved. It won't be tonight, but
No, but I think our question is what are we? We're here to kind of provide for the general welfare. So we might not always make decisions that would seem rational. I mean, David may be one of the most intuitive people on numbers I've ever seen, and his questions are perfect. They're perfect on numbers. I'd like to use him as an expert witness. But sometimes the numbers can't always drive our decisions because that's not necessarily in the general
They
welfare.
don't have to drive them. They can be one angle on the decision.
Correct.
And we need to understand that before we make the decision.
Yeah, we can do things that don't make sense economically. For example, when we talked about the second floor of Sarah's, there was no way in hell that ever would pay out, have any kind of return. But it might have been something we would have chosen to do.
Right.
If we thought it improved the village and improved it and benefited everyone in the village, we might have gone ahead, But even when it was at 450,000, it didn't make any economic sense when let alone when the actual bids came in at double that.
So I'm going to take away from
Sure,
what you said, what I'm going to take away as a good council meeting is when we do the small stuff, that's important. And even if it's boring,
trains running on
we're
time.
doing
Yeah.
our job.
Keep the train
So
running on time.
Just 1 second, if I
Go ahead.
in corporate life, and I spent a long time there, there is an assumption that the day-to-day operations are going well. You keep an eye on them, but you don't talk endlessly about them. You talk about the things that will change the future, not sustain the present.
The amount of
necessarily.
airtime that changing the future gets
Isn't-
is very small
Very small.
compared to running the railroad trains on time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can name 4 items out of the out of the comprehensive plan that we still haven't tackled. We haven't even talked about at council that were big issues in the plan.
So it's a bit of a debate then about what's important,
right.
running the trains or
Well, they're all
some future.
important.
Well,
So
it's all important.
Yeah,
The
but it,
council's role could be different in the two.
and it's just interesting to hear people's perspective on that.
But if all the apparatus you ran on the comprehensive plan and all the effort and the hours we put into it, there shouldn't be issues that we've never even talked about that were in that plan. And there are 4 of them that I
So
can think of.
we're gonna get to that if we
They're now
move
all
along.
On your page.
Hmm?
They're all now on the priorities page.
Yeah.
But you sent them to me 3 weeks ago and I kept them on there.
I did.
And they're there. So in fairness to you, thank you for the reminder. There was over 100 recommendations, so. Anybody
Yeah,
else
but
that
some are
has,
bigger than others.
and some, including a couple that you have aren't that big.
I wasn't
They're out
talking
there.
about the Dark Skies Initiative,
Yeah.
which frankly I like, but
So-
I agree it's not one of the
So
major.
time check here, we're at 6:50.
Yeah, so let me do 2 things. And one was, we did get a piece of feedback for Steve with regard to the question, what does Steve do? What does the mayor do well that we would like to see more
About
And-
Zoom call from the government.
of? So we heard one that he's good at building consensus, going and asking people to check in. I wish I could. But for me, I would say it's kind of the crispness of the language that you use and the
I'm a councilman where I live.
presented in a very
Okay,
cogent
no.
way, which I respect. Any other kinds of positive feedback like that for the mayor?
Ed was just saying something, or he was
I
talking.
think he's talking.
I think he was talking. Okay,
Okay,
others?
thank you.
Quick point, I've only ever seen 2 mayors in action in Gates Mills. And that's you and your predecessor. And things have definitely improved. There's no doubt about that. But I do get the feeling that you have your priorities, your personal priorities about what we talk about and how we talk about them. And they seem to be unchangeable. You're a very determined man. You're very aware that to get stuff done, you've got to do stuff, get it moving. And you're a leader. And I think council needs to be inputting to that process. So you might actually change your mind at some point. You're very determined. And I understand that. You want to achieve things that will be attributable to your tenure. I understand that too. We're in a better place than we were. I looked at the council in this time in 2019, and of the 7 council members then, only 2 remain. We've got a new mayor, a new treasurer. The administration has turned over completely, effectively, and we're in a better place. And I keep thinking about how much better it could be. So I applaud your leadership. I applaud the way you run the meetings. I'm not sure about your agenda. That's all. That's all that bothers me.
Interesting.
That's fine, and I appreciate that. Thank you for the compliments and the comments. Part of the reason I put together all the 25 priorities and created the sheet was so that you all know what I think we should be doing. But there's 10 of us that were elected as representatives of this village, not one mayor, not 7 council people and 2 others.
Sure.
So,
I'm-
putting this together was kind of for the purpose, if
Yeah.
both today and going forward. And if there are things that aren't on here that you think are priorities, great. Let's remember, a year ago, we got together for the first time and we had nothing. We had a comprehensive plan that was delivered to council in June, and nothing happened for 6 months. And then we spent 2 months talking about it, and really not until March did we get things kind of prioritized to say, put aside the phraseology of the comprehensive plan. There are a lot of good contents in here that could be guides for how we move forward. And you all helped me put these together. These 3 priorities are really ours. So I don't see these as necessarily as my priorities, as much as they are, I think, priorities for the village. That in my role, I then will move forward and administer these the best we can with council's sign off on things when, you know, with the appropriate times and the appropriate amounts. The other stuff on the bottom is other important things that may not be strategically critical. Okay, where's the salt bin go? But it's got to get figured out. And so it's gonna be on the list this year for someone to take care of.
Yeah,
But-
well, I'm
but
not
there are
sure, I'm
other
not
things.
sure we can help you with that.
Well, that's fine. You know, but you should know what we're doing, so that someone doesn't say, what's that all about? So I'm not aware of anything that I've got planned for the village, or that the people are working on that materially, that aren't on this list. And what would be helpful is we only have 30 minutes left. You know, I see some people have some notes scribbled out. Give me a call, send me an email, buy me a cup of coffee, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. And let's figure out, make sure you understand what all these are. And then if there's a priority, I put down the column ranking, and then I didn't really like ranking. And then Sandra and I talked, and we're gonna put grade and hot, medium, cold, 1, 2, 3. You know, how do you, but they all get done. They all got to get tackled somewhere in there. Some more immediately, others can wait 6 months or 9 months. So I would just say this is what I've got. And people that commented back to me, I've added your comments in there. So David, you're down there for a few things on the bottom of, in the 4th quadrant. Michael, all of yours are on here, but for one.
Actually, I think I got a couple that didn't make it.
Okay, well, you sent me one and said, here's my 4 things. So,
Well, let me.
now you may have a few more, okay?
No, they were in the 4,
Okay,
but one was the historic district. I think that is on there.
it's on here, number 8, yeah.
Okay, that was out of the long range
Yeah.
plan. One was develop a plan for downtown Gates Mills.
It's on
I
here.
think that's on there.
5.
That came out of the plan. The other 2 things came out of the Outside Perspectives Committee. I don't think they're on there. One was, this is the very beginning of the plan.
Yeah,
This is when they talked to external realtors and said, what do you hear when you're dealing with clients who are deciding between Gates Mills, Hunting Valley, Solon, Chagrin
Right.
Falls, what have you? One of them was some of the housing in Gates Mills is viewed to be dilapidated. And that's one thing we've never talked about. And we could certainly, as council, we could create a tax abatement program to encourage people to invest in the external of their house. And we could set criteria that you have to put a certain amount of money in and you have to do something. But that's one that I'd like to see us tackle in 25.
Okay.
The other one is one that David and I have been on for a long, long time, even before the long range plan, and that's Mayfield Schools. Mayfield Schools is one of the negatives for Gates Mills in external perception of the village versus other communities.
Okay,
And
now,
David and I would like to talk about what we can do about that. Is it a reality problem or just a perception problem? And what degrees of freedom? And there's been absolutely nobody around the table in this council or the council before that wants to touch that. It's regarded as a radioactive issue.
okay, and just to correct you, the outside perspectives had both. It was a barbell. You know, people thought it was a gem in the village and others thought.
I'm
it
not
was a
talking about the
deficit.
people in the
Yeah.
village.
Here.
People-
Everybody in the
people-
village thinks it's a gem.
No, well,
But Gates Mills
let's not debate it. Let's, if it's been around that long,
It was close.
it's not on the list. Okay, it doesn't mean it's gonna be addressed tomorrow morning at 8 AM, but it's gonna get addressed this year. on the dilapidated houses, I did talk to, the organization downtown that we belong to. I forget the names. There are,
Heritage, something that's already.
there
There was a little bit of discussion, but mainly from
Yeah.
Chuck Spear about heritage, but we could do a lot more than just that if we wanted
all I'm
to.
saying is the condition of the houses, they have a report on the condition of all the houses. There are only 25 houses out of our 1,000
They need fixing.
that need fixing.
I agree with you.
So it's not a big issue. Now, for those 25 people and those homeowners and those houses, especially if you live next to them, it's a bigger issue.
Well,
Okay.
I would say there's a huge incentive to fix those 25, because if 25 out of 1,000 are causing people to choose to live in some other community, then we ought to be willing to jump through a few
Okay,
hoops
it's a fair
to
point.
try to get those 25 fixed.
Sandra, I think Ed's trying to make a comment. I see his thing lighting up. So could we take a break and see if he has something to say, please?
Okay.
I'm here.
Hi, Ed, do you have a comment?
I just think it's such a wonderful pleasure working with you people. Lori, you astound me. You're brilliant, and you're so easy to work with. You're so understanding. I was cued in by the Whitneys about you, and everything they've said is true, plus a lot of it with both David and my working with Michael. I mean, you can't find smarter people in this country than those people. And it's just a delight. They have good logic, and they all basically feel the same thing. My biggest thing, as you know, in the village is communication. I found that these people want to be part of this village. I feel I brought a lot of people together, and I just think it's just communication. To love a place, all of us the same, and don't change anything has been basically from my wife, my motive to go. And so whenever we can't get anything to work right, we buy it, and we control everything. I can't thank you enough for all the support you've given me. That's about it.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
And we appreciate all
Yeah,
the effort
working with
you have
Scott.
to get signed on and to stay signed on.
Uh-huh.
I'm just saying, thank you
Working
for
with
all the
Scott
effort
Broom.
to.
Yeah, working with Scott Broom, man, I don't know if he's there or not, but he is brilliant. And, what can I say? And Mayor, I love you. You've done a great job. A million attaboys.
Thank you, Ed.
Ed, we love you too.
So
I want to end on a high. This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So I have one comment about, I always had a reluctance to the idea of a master plan, or even the title of the comprehensive plan. I think it lent the residents to start thinking that, council or the government was cooking up some big changes and we're gonna transform the place, where I really don't think people want to transform. And David and Michael and I were talking about this, and they were definitely able to persuade me that I don't know, I'd call it a master plan, but maybe a contingency plan is what happens if one of the uses that's currently being put to the buildings in the village, what if it changes? I mean, are we caught flat-footed? Do we not have any idea about what we ought to do, or what? Again, I think part of the thing is what's possible is, we need to define what are the boundaries of what are possible, and have some idea of how we would get there if these changes were to happen. And it's probably, they're right. The school, if the school were to change, and I've thought about this since we talked, and it's probably
The
slim
school has
chance.
changed.
No,
Dr.
no,
Price
but
is just, you don't find people like Dr. Price. Now he's gone. Now we're just dealing with people. What can I say?
But the school district got such wonderful volunteers out of the Gatesville School. I mean, where are you going to find another Megan Perez? I mean, she's like a rock star, and all the effort she put into the levy. And so, the school probably thinking, well, we're getting a lot of parental participation out of the parents from Gatesville that do use the school. Why would we close the school? But but that property is owned by the school. They could do with it as they pleased.
Yeah.
You
Well, you've
can
been
sell it.
able to, yeah,
And
you've
we
been
ought
able to keep
know.
their support.
Yeah, I think they're probably more at risk on the Livery
Livery Tavern.
Tavern
Yes.
and maybe the post office.
Post office,
Right.
yeah.
With the Doge looking to cut costs. I'm not so sure.
I mean,
I don't know when the lease is up on the post office.
Right.
I would say the schools
Oh,
consistently said they want, a
Yeah,
school in every community.
Right.
And
But if something were to change, what would we do? What would it look like?
Yeah.
I mean,
And when I started running for office, they came to me and said they're dissolving the post office, and that Harriet Veal had sued the library to leave. I mean, it was just insane stuff, and you guys rallied around. You were just so beautiful. And people were coming to me in the middle of the night, telling me what was really going on there, and it was absolutely frightening. And I feel that we've got all the checks and balances in place, but if anything happened to any of us, it could be wide open again. You're totally right.
did we, do you want to go back to talk about the accomplishment for
You're-
24?
You're,
Um,
how about one accomplishment rather than three per person? How about one per person?
Yeah.
Go around the table. David, what do you
It's
think?
breaking up.
I'm sorry.
accomplishment for 24. What did
You only get
what
one.
did you have?
You only get one.
Yes.
Well, you have three, so you.
Personal or the council?
Pardon me?
Council or council?
Wait, an accomplishment for 24 was what? The council?
No,
No,
it's asking for-
Accomplishments of the
Oh,
village,
yeah.
of the village.
Oh, yeah, what are
Yeah.
the top 3 accomplishments of the village? So I'm talking about council, mayor, staff.
I'll go first.
I mean, look at the work that
I think
Gumowski
coming
is
in under
doing.
budget, I'll go with the numbers,
Right,
then coming
yeah.
in under budget. And I make a little asterisk for the Encore program. I
Mhm.
do think people are looking for reasons to
You
get
only get
together
one.
to know their neighbors.
Good asterisk.
He was quick.
Yeah, he was quick. He was quick.
Tree canopy.
Tree canopy committee?
We've talked a lot. We haven't actually done anything yet.
But at least you've
We're on
organized.
track. Yeah, we're on
We're
track
on
to do
track.
some things. We haven't actually done anything.
No,
We've done a lot.
I would agree with
about-
that.
We've done a lot.
We're about.
Shovel in the ground? No, but
Yeah.
we've made a lot of progress.
I've
How
got some
about,
good news
I-
to share tomorrow at the meeting, by the way.
Hmm?
Got some good news to share tomorrow at the meeting. Tree canopy.
I just
Great.
had fish and government surplus for the year. So I mean, that was my,
No, thank you.
okay.
You can't take credit for that. That's municipal income tax
no,
revenues that are.
listen, that and the staff does a great job of holding the line on expenses and There-
Lori, how about you?
Well, since Craig and Scott hit the financial health piece while dealing with, some unplanned emergencies like the old mill thing, I guess I would say, it took a lot, I think, for us to kind of come to grips with the comprehensive plan and how that was going to work going forward and how we're going to use it as a guidepost. And I feel like we've moved forward with that, with tactical plans. And I guess just the one concern I have from the discussion is we've thrown out a lot of priorities and, we can't do everything because we have the boring stuff to do. So how are we going to prioritize all those things? That's my concern listening to, I mean, they're great ideas, they're great things, Michael, you brought up, but
Yeah.
how
Well, I
are we
think-
going to prioritize?
I think we already have. We own it all now, so we can do what we want. Nobody can come in there and destroy, and that's what all were doing. So, I just, as for one person, I'm thrilled that we can say no. And before that, we couldn't. I mean, that person that came in sent a letter to the whole village developing condos to replace the Mills building. Stuff like that was just totally out of control. They're going to close the post office. We'd lose our zip code. Just small things like that make us Gates Mills. And, you stood behind me like a solid rock, and I really appreciate it. Communication, I think, was just getting the word out. People came to me in the middle of the night, and I tried to just let people know in a subtle sort of a way, without any names mentioned or anything else, that we were going uphill or down here, or somebody's got something in their back pocket, and you sniffed them out, and David sniffed them out, And Michael sniffed them out, and it all comes right around the same circle. We know who they are. We know what they want. They want to make millions, and they want to do it on top of us. And this is our home. This is all we've got, and we just want to make it ours.
Okay, and my accomplishment was the weekend staffing of, not my personally, but the village, the weekend staffing of the fire station and the cadet program. I thought was pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, so.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment I've never been able to accomplish is getting our own ambulance. That's one of my big hot buttons. And lately I've used it, so I would love to have that support. But when we had that previous fire chief, you know, it made it an impossibility. You just turn on me and make me look like a fool. And, you know, he was a dumb man. So what can I say?
How about
Well-
Encore?
Encore.
That was an accomplishment, I
Yeah,
think.
that's great.
Got
That was a great,
that, yeah.
that was a great accomplishment. So, well,
Yeah.
we're coming close to the end. And there were a couple of things about what we would stop, continue and start, which we can pick up at another time. We can talk about that at a council meeting. My
Yeah.
hope for tonight was just that we'd have a little bit more opportunity to discuss, to learn who we are and why we're here and what we're about,
Yeah.
what our styles are, and so that we might be more open and showing more curiosity and context as
Yeah.
we move forward in this year. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. We kind of scratch the surface. There's a lot more to get to, but you
Yeah.
know, perhaps we can do these meetings twice a year, 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Some
I mean,
some
Sandra,
communities-
just for me to sit back and watch how you take care of Jeff and how wonderful you are to him and how dedicated you are to everybody, it makes me very proud to be working with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So some communities, have meetings of the whole where they get together and talk about topics and they don't vote, but it's a way to perhaps get on the same page, at least understand people's perspectives before you get into a meeting to
Right.
vote. I don't want to
Right.
I don't want to recommend additional meetings, one a month is a lot. But again, if we think we saw some value to this, and maybe it's not something we have to just do once a year. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time to fill this out, to give it some thought, to speak it to one another tonight. I really appreciate that. And again, it's great to work with all of you and the mayor, and hopefully we're on track for a great 25.
We got 5 minutes left, so let me suggest two things. Do we want to, first of all, I'm gonna pass out to each of you, I'm gonna do it electronically tomorrow, because he's gonna pass it out. Michael and I had created what would be a questionnaire, a simple questionnaire, 1 page, 2 questions to our residents on the 3 elements of zoning change. It's not going out, okay? It's to council to be able to look at to say, is this worded about the way you would like it to be worded? Do we need this? Okay, but at least we come back to the council meeting in a week. I'll put this on the agenda. Do we do the survey or not? If you don't like the way it's worded, suggest other words. If you think it's not necessary, say it's not necessary. If you love it, tell us you love it, okay? But we got to move the ball a little bit here, either put the ball back in the closet or kick the ball down the street. Okay, so this you'll get tomorrow. Are there any items on this list that you all want to talk about briefly, or have any question about what they are? Or do we want to leave this to me and each council person getting together electronically or in person, and you give me your views by next Tuesday?
Is that this list?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so the salt bin, that's the first I've heard of it.
Okay. Quickly on the salt bin, the roof's caving in. It's going to be a $400,000 type expenditure. We've put in the budget for this year about 35 to 50,000 to design it. It doesn't need to be bigger or smaller. Where does it go? What's it made out of? The one we have, of course, is decades old. So all we have in the budget is design and engineering costs. But it would be a 6-figure number.
You lost me. To design what?
the salt bin that we have is the roof's caving in. Several communities have gotten grants to this from whomever. I don't know what.
Oh,
what their
okay.
funding
I
source
just
is.
didn't understand what
Yeah.
where we're coming from. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was thinking, just we're so close to the river, you want to keep the salt out of the river.
You're gonna keep it dry, and we pay for storage because it's not big enough for all of our salt. So if you're doing this, do you get a bigger salt bin, and then of course that's taller and wider and more expensive. So it's a fair point.
Okay. Well, being a fellow skier, I certainly understand that. I love the snow. I love the change in seasons in Gates Mills. Aren't they beautiful?
We do too. Craig, you had a comment?
I don't, under the top three priorities here, this is all consistent with what we've talked about before. So there's nothing on here,
Okay.
Surprises me or
Right.
sticks out. So
The one thing that may be, it's old news, but it's maybe new news to some of you, the railroad bridge is 110 years old. The last report that we had done with the railroad bridge was in 2009. It had concluded that while the bridge was in good condition, here are things that need to get fixed. Since 2009, nothing's been done. So you have 15 more years of aging on a condition that has some issues. I contacted the industrial engineer, the structural engineer, the PE, that did the report. We engaged him for a few $1,000s to come out and update his report, including an estimate of cost to replace the parts of it.
Yeah.
I've also talked to one of our neighbors, who I won't name, who's in the bridge and steel erection business, who's going to take a look at it as an advisor, if you will, at this point. I've also got Chris Courtney, who did the last estimate a number of years ago. The bridge will require the village to fix it. And we need to first figure out what's the cost and what's the timetable and how bad are the rust holes. And it will be a 6 to 7 figure number. So it's got to, like a lot of things that we find, you got to first figure out how big is it and what's the cost and what's the timetable, and then click roads, you sequence them in somehow. So we'll
might have to go out for some private donations. Yeah. It's the ambiance of Gates Mills. It's beautiful.
It is the ambiance. Thank you, Ed. And last year, the Historical Society did, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, apply for money from the state. They were not successful at that point. We're figuring out why that was. If it was contacts or completeness of the application, or the money was given for something else. We're going to start that process again with a little more rigor. And I think probably most other things on there. Yeah, I got at number 5, the master plan. I put master plan in lower MP. I'm not sure what we call that. Maybe that we call that, Scott, the contingency plan. Yeah, the question is, we've got a lot of stuff going on down here. Marston Park's been fixed up. We're going to fix up the Arboretum. The bridge is going to need some work in the next, within the next 24 months. How does it all fit together? And what if something unforeseen did happen? So
that was like a flood.
Well, could be the flood.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's some work there that's probably not on the immediate list, but it is something that we shouldn't kick the can too far now.
And don't you just love Dave Biggert? I mean, the man's a genius, and the village looks fantastic.
Thank you. We'll pass on the compliments to all the guys and gals.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so there's nothing else on there. If you have comments, send them along. I think I'm going to suggest for the next council meeting, we may not, if we want to go forward with a protocol whereby if you want something on the agenda, you send it in advance, 2 weeks. That way we have time, whoever it might be, to at least talk about it, to see if it's is it council level material, or is this something that can be answered? And if it is, what material do you need? And then we won't have stuff at the end waiting for what, as kind of a surprise.
Yep.
Is that okay with all you? Laura, you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Ed?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Roll call, please.
Anton.
Yes.
Broom.
Yes.
Press.
Yeah.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Thank you. Meeting is
Okay.
adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. Thanks for arranging this.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
again
Sandra.
for the treats.
Thank you. Have fun.
Take care,
Thank you.
guys.
Have a good day. Thank you very much.
See you next
like to
week.
take some things home.
Huh?
Okay, see you next week. Anybody like to take some things home? We've got-
Is council meeting next week?
That's the best one.
Yeah, I know.
It's all gone already.
Is council meeting next week?
No chance.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. Is council meeting next week? Hello? Okay. That was a nice call. Okay, but just hang up, huh?